We wanted to look back at last year's competition. Obviously, a huge one for the Chiefs, and I guess what were the sort of key, I guess, memories you have and lessons perhaps you learned from that campaign?
Big lessons we learned were, we kind of had to rely on other results to get through. If we want to push on and have a big learn from last year would be, keeping the destiny in our hands, if you would, and making sure that we go out and perform and put in a decent result and get the performance right. It had to come right down to the wire last year. That was a pretty special memory, but God, it was. No one really knew until we were actually in the changing room. I think there's a shot of us in the huddle at the end, and someone comes in and confirms the other result. So making sure that if we get off to a good start this year, for example, so after 2 rounds we could be pretty safe and secure that we're heading in the right path. It's just about nailing that down and making sure we do it.
Absolutely. How much did Sandy Park and the Exeter Chiefs really sort of embrace Champions Cup rugby last year?
Very much so. Especially when you got kind of French giants of Clermont coming over and teams along those lines. It's a very passionate crowd, and then, if you kind of show that emotion on the pitch, the crowd very much get behind you, and you can really feel that buzz going throughout the whole stadium. You look back to, it was Clermont we had at home last year, and I was kind of running on empty. My daughter had just been born 2 to 3 days before, and just the electric atmosphere in the crowd really kind of pushed me through personally, and we got off to a kind of winning result there, so it was fantastic.
Perfect. How does playing in these big European competitions, particularly the Champions Cup, how does it help as individuals and as a unit? You guys grow and improve.
It's the top level of rugby, isn't it? Club rugby. If you want to ever improve and make yourself better, you want to be playing against the best players that you possibly can be in the competition. So, everyone's getting decent game minutes in there as well. It's a different challenge from the Premiership. It's played slightly differently. It's a slightly different style of rugby, but nevertheless, kind of different options you're playing with and different players you're playing against are only going to improve you, kind of physically and mentally.
Perfect. You sort of touched on it earlier, but what kind of things did you learn from having such a difficult pool last year? In terms of having such huge names in your group, and while this year perhaps isn't so much of a group of death as it were, but you guys, what lessons I suppose can you take going to the pool stages this year?
Going into the pool stages, like I said earlier, I think very much getting it off to a good start in the first 2 rounds. We're starting with a home performance, and you definitely need to pick up results at your home ground. So we need to start with a bang with the first game, and then that hopefully will give us momentum to take onto the road. When we're playing away from home, it's just very much about staying in our bubble and trying to pressure the opposition and trying to nullify their crowd, because a home crowd can really affect the performance.
Absolutely, and some very familiar opposition, I suppose, this year in both Clermont and Bordeaux as well.
Very much so. French teams, very, very, very passionate fans at home. Borderline a little bit mental. They can create quite a hostile environment. But again, if you give them opportunity to create momentum within the game and get their fans involved, they really will get behind them and cheer them on and kind of spur them on to victory. So again, very much about nullifying the crowd and keeping your foot in the game.
European Rugby, just keen to get some thoughts on the Keeping Rugby clean campaign that they're sort of helping to launch with World Rugby, and I guess just from your perspective, how important is it to keep rugby a clean sport and to demonstrate those kind of values in the Champions Cup?
Rugby's had its kind of core values set for a long while now, and you look at a sport, for example, such as football, where it's become very much kind of shouting at the ref and quite an aggressive environment. Yes, it is a contact sport and it's a collision sport, but we want to be able to kind of shake hands after a game and go and have a beer and relax together. And those core values have been in the game since it's been around, and it's vital to keep it in the game. Not only on the top level, but kind of performing on that stage is going to inspire younger generations to do the same as well. So it's really important to keep it in.
And